Well, ESG is something that we have been covering here on this show, environmental social governance. And all across the country, state treasurers are pushing back and pulling money out of asset management firms like BlackRock, which is using public pension money to push their political agenda. The most recent state, Missouri, pulling $500 million. Now, I want to bring in someone from the National Center for Public Policy Research and Free Enterprise Project Director, Scott Shepard. Scott joins us now. Scott, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me on.
You know, you've been very vocal about the dangers of what asset managers like BlackRock are doing. How have you been challenging BlackRock's board during shareholder meetings over meddling in social and public policy issues?
Well, we've been going to those meetings and we've been trying to communicate with BlackRock's executives. Larry Fink says in his annual letters to CEOs that he's not acting in a woke way, he's not acting in a partisan way, even though his two big commitments, equity-based discrimination and climate catastrophist decarbonization schedules, are exactly the same as the two whole of government initiatives of the Biden administration. He also says that, he's got ESG products available and non-ESG, and he respects his investors, but then he brags that he uses all of the assets invested with him to achieve the hard left equity and decarbonization goals. So he lies all the time in ways that we establish in our communications with him and watching him at annual shareholder meetings. He's not a good steward of all of that money invested with him, which used to be approaching $11 trillion and is now down to 8, in part because he makes terrible decisions and is pushing the world economy in a terrible direction, but also because states like Missouri and Louisiana and South Carolina and West Virginia, to start, are taking those taxpayer funds and pension funds away from BlackRock and putting them where they can be reliably invested and voted.
Scott, for those not familiar, what exactly is ESG and why are government officials and corporate executives embracing it?
Well, ESG is supposed to stand for environmental, social, and governance. And the idea is it's sold by its supporters. It's suggested that, gosh golly, everybody is in favor of ESG. It's just corporations doing the right thing. In fact, though, what it turns out to be, as I've suggested, is race-based discrimination and equity-based discrimination and orientation-based discrimination and decarbonizing on political schedules. And that's hurting Europe. It's made Europe vulnerable to Russia's activities in the Ukraine and to skyrocketing prices. It's going to hurt the United States. It's going to make us vulnerable in the challenges that China and other authoritarian nations are increasingly putting us to. And it's going to reignite racial and sex-based discrimination problems that this country had put to bed long ago. And so everything that really exists in ESG, it's sold as goody two-shoes stuff. It's really societal level destruction for the United States.
Yeah, you just touched on this, but 19 Republican attorney generals have accused BlackRock of boycotting the fossil fuel industry at the expense of its clients. Do you think as the U.S. is going green, it's also going broke, but China is becoming rich?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Those attorneys general are pointing out that BlackRock's violating its fiduciary duty and lying to all of us when it forces companies to greenify on a schedule that doesn't make any technological sense, doesn't make any financial sense, and puts us at geopolitical risk. And it also puts us, at risk in all these ways for no purpose whatever, because China is not going to decarbonize. They build more coal plants every year than the whole West has remaining. And India is not going to decarbonize. So even if you accept their scare tactics and their scare models and their scare theories, nothing that the West can do to decarbonize is going to change anything about the environment. All it's going to do is make the United States economy and United States defenses as weak as those in Western Europe today, which will make the entire free West vulnerable to authoritarian regimes in China, Russia, and elsewhere.
Yeah, that's very scary when I hear you say this. Do you think as more states pull out their money from companies like BlackRock, you think companies like BlackRock will get the message, stay out of this political agenda, or they're not stopping?
Well, I think that it's not, if it were just the withdrawal of red state funds, I think that wouldn't give them the message. But State legislatures are moving, state elected officials are moving against BlackRock. BlackRock and Larry Fink personally are violating fiduciary duty to shareholders and investors. We're seeing lawsuits start to rise, not against BlackRock yet, but shareholder derivative lawsuits against companies that are violating the law, violating their fiduciary duty. And I look forward to laws that are going to make it harder for Larry Fink to try to be the unelected and unappointed master of the universe. And I look forward to him being, now I don't want to see anybody destroyed, but if there's anybody who deserves having a great deal of their wealth taken away through shareholder derivative lawsuits because they're violating the fiduciary duty of people who trust them, it's Larry Fink.
Well, and people like you are definitely staying on top of it, so we thank you for that. Scott Shepard, glad you could join us. And of course, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much. Anytime.
Still to come on One America News.